On this episode of ResiWeek, we have CEDIA 2019 wrap-ups, as well as the SnapAV Plus Control4 keynote event, and Barry Sonnenfeld hates 8K and HDR. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 189, CEDIA Expo 2019.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Middle Atlantic. What great systems are built on.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and information for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott, and this week I am pleased to be joined by my good friend, Heather Sidorowicz. She is the president of Southtown AV. How you doing, Heather?
I am just peachy keen, just catching up.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we have Tony Savona. He is the content director at Residential Systems. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. I bumped into both of these fine guests repeatedly over the course of the show, as one does when they're at CEDIA. If you missed it, somehow last week was CEDIA Expo 2019 in Denver, Colorado. It was a really good show, and we are going to kick it off with a story that comes to us from really like the classic intrepid CEDIA reporter, John Siaka. This comes to us from Residential Systems as Tony laughs over that one. Hopefully John will send me a hate tweet for it, which will be great. Heather, I want to kick this off with you. John goes over an absolute ton of stuff in day one, so check out day one, day two, day three. He kicks it off, though, with arguably kind of the traditional sexiness that people expect when they go to these kind of tech shows. LG 8K OLED at $30,000. Sony crystal LED display wall, a 219-inch display that was 16 by 9 feet tall at just shy of $900,000, and a Epson laser projection TV that was quite affordable.
Yeah, wasn't that like $5,000?
Yeah, $5,000. Like just pocket change.
Pocket change. For
somebody like John.
Well, I sold 2 of the Sony walls since I got back, so.
You've sold 2 of them?
2, yeah.
That's fantastic. Did you, I was talking with Jason Savage from Sony, and they have a scissor mounting solution so that it'll recess into a wall. It's an extra couple $100,000.
I mean, what's
Did you add it on?
Well, of course. I mean, it's all about the add-ons, you know?
So Heather, you really kind of helped jump right in on there. The question that I wanted to start off with, and again, read this review. It's fantastic. Covers a lot of stuff. When you go to these shows, when you go to these events, how hard is it to be sucked into these uber fancy, super sexy, somewhat ridiculous products? I know in my neck of the woods, we're not selling a ton of $100 million display walls.
Yeah, nor are we, in case anyone that was taking me seriously. But of course, I mean, we go to these shows and even us nerdy, techie people want to be wowed. So of course they have to bring out their big guns because that's what gets you to walk into their booth, right? You walk into the booth and of course, I'll tell you, every single person up there is like going to get 2 inches away. They're going to look around the edge. I mean, that's what we do. That's what we're going to, how many pixels can we see? And then we're going to pull back. And then, after you chuckle with the person next to you, then for some reason we all feel like we have to take a video to show it on Facebook, even though you can't see it as good and amazing. Then you're going to turn around and look at the rest of the product, right? So it's a grabbing way to get you out there. And this happens at all the shows. CES, when you go, Infocom, they have the coolest video wall stuff you've ever seen. So they need a reason for you to get out there. And of course, just by off chance, if someone comes up to you and says that they want one of these crazy things, you're going to say, I've seen that somewhere. You'll find it and figure it out. I mean, it is possible, maybe a once in a lifetime. Maybe unless you ask anyone in the lines, then they'll tell you they only sell multi-million-dollar systems.
Yes.
I remember hearing that year after year when I first started going, what do you do? I sell multi-million-dollar systems. I'm sure you do.
Very good for you. Very good for you. It sounds like we're being a little sarcastic, and we are. Tony, let me come back to you on this. John covers the highlights, but there was a lot of really innovative products that were on the market and exhibiting at the show. I know a good friend of ours, Hamish from Hero Labs, won like a CE Pro something award, innovation award for a new product that they're bringing to market. That's again smart DIY, smart home stuff. I saw an intelligent IntelliThings Bluetooth tracker that's like $69. Was there a growing divide between ultra high-end luxury and entry-level smart home, or was the show floor reflective of the industry in that sense?
I think it's the categories. So, the home theater stuff tends to be more expensive than the smart home equipment. You're right. It's a simple Bluetooth device, like the IntelliThings that tells you when you by your phone when you walk into a room. It's all very cool. There was a security camera that you screw into a light bulb fixture, and that's how you get your power out of it. And in the security pavilion, that's all very cool stuff. But when you think about what the screens are doing, what your home theaters are doing, it's a much more of an experiential thing, a much deeper experience, right? That than having walking into a room and knowing that it's you and putting on the music you like or setting the lights the way you like it. Just the AV part, the sound, the video quality. It's you expect a higher quality, right? A higher level of performance than you're getting from the simpler devices. So I think it goes by product category. I think, and even within that, I mean, the LG and the Sony with he leads off with that because John was actually going through his day, and both those had press conferences early in the morning, and they showed their big thing, and then they leaned over and said, "Oh, he's a $4,000 TV too." So, but what do you remember? You remember that gorgeous, $30,000 8K OLED screen, and
well, they also had a beautiful wall of their frame TVs.
Mm-hmm.
They were showing a mishmash of frame TV showing art and then actual art. And, again, they were showing lots of different things in all of the booths. So very good. Heather, let me come back to you real quick for one quick second. When you walk the floor, you and I have had debates for years over appointments versus no appointments. And I've kind of come to your end, your side of the
argument. I think we switched spots.
We have switched spots now that my media schedule has ramped up. My day is scheduled start to finish, whereas previous I was free to walk around. How much do you miss if you don't take the time to, take a couple hours and literally just wander?
I do think that there's a balance to it, right? And I think I've learned that my audio video career is now 18 years old. It's old enough to vote. That there has to be a balance. So I think that you get a deeper dive when you actually have that setting where you meet with someone, they're going to show you more of their products, but a lot of that could be fluff too. So it's going to be either or. John, in my early days, John and I used to walk the floor on Saturday. So most people were gone, and you would just go up and down the aisles because sometimes you find the coolest products by just wandering that you didn't make an appointment for, that you didn't know it existed, that they don't have their act together to put it together a press event or a press release. Mural was one of those ones that I found years ago, which is before Samsung came out with their art TV or art wall or whatever they call it. But Mural is it just does art, it doesn't do TV. I have it hanging in my house, and it's one of my favorite things from my technology standpoint. Not crazy expensive, but really it's a great conversation starter, and like my family's learned about art that we wouldn't otherwise know.
Glad you brought that up, Matt, though, because I was having that debate the whole plane ride home. I don't know whether or not I should do appointments versus free form walking around the floor. I think I had appointments, and I think I may have missed some good stuff that way, though.
Well, I would agree because especially when I would just cover the show or any show from a writing aspect, it was much more freeform. You didn't have to pop in and have specific appointments per se. But now that AVNation is doing what it's doing, and we're covering the show with a ton of video production, you have to have those appointments because otherwise the people you need to speak to sometimes are not available. You do. That's the only drawback I have of the way that I attend most of the shows these days is I don't get as much wander time. And you see a lot of really, really cool things when you just wander around. All right, let's move on to our next article of the day. This comes to us from AVNation.tv. Control and SnapAV kick off their CEDIA Expo with some major announcements and upgrades. If you were unaware, really for the first time, SnapAV and SnapAV plus Control4 had a large keynote press event. Control4's had these in the past, but SnapAV has not necessarily done this in this manner before. So the new combined company had it and hosted it Wednesday afternoon before the CEDIA keynote. And they led off with a bunch of really interesting facts and figures about SnapAV and the investment that SnapAV has made in the industry. So Tony, I want to come back to you on this. How important is it for brands to tell their story? In this sense, the start of this keynote for me really seemed almost like an Apple style, hey, here's where we're at. We've got this many OSs or iOS devices on this iteration. Here's all of our stuff. Here's where we're at. Was this more of would you say that this is more of a one-time, hey, the merger just happened, we're getting people from both parties in the same room for the first time, or is it really just a really good feel good, hey, here's what we're doing?
I guess it remains to be seen whether or not this was a one-time only thing. I would tend to think that it was a good time to do it. The merger just got completed shortly beforehand. You had restaurants, with their OS 3, they've been in the news a lot lately. It's good to make a splash there. So I think it made a lot of sense for them to do what they did. It'd be interesting to see if they do decide to continue it and take that leadership position every CEDIA where they do that a keynote right before the keynote. It puts a spotlight on them, gives them a lot of attention. With Snap, they certainly have the power behind it to do it. Personally, I don't think I've heard that much from Snap prior to this. Like, they were there, but not as loud as this. Not as you say, the brand story, creating that. So that seems to be a more recent addition. And I am curious to see if they continue it throughout the year, or if this is going to be, they'll save it for the big splash.
Very good. Heather, I'm going to go through a couple of things that were highlighted in that keynote, including that they just added Google Assistant. They have their Intercom Anywhere that is supporting multiple doorbells from additional manufacturers, but they also released a CA10 new controller. This is a commercial grade controller, redundant power supplies, redundant network cards, redundant fans, really, stealing from the likes of Cisco in their commercial grade switches and network products that are, again, 100% redundant. Something dies, you're fine, because everything else is still going to roll over and work. When you look at some of these announcements that they're doing and really pushing the very smart home with AI and a bunch of other fun things involved, are they trying to just bring some really good products to the market, or are they trying to cement themselves as the leaders in smart home? Because they've been running away with that flag for quite a while.
They have, especially as Crestron bowed out a few years ago to CEDIA, and anyone that remembers the CEDIA before that, I mean, you walked in those front doors and it was all Crestron and quite fancy. So I do think that Control4 kind of dominates that space right now, especially at the show. I think that this could also be a play into some commercial with something so redundant. I mean, I've seen people putting Control4 out there in commercial applications. I think there's a right time and space for them, but this could be the beginning of them going after that market as well. I mean, I think currently in Crestron world, and definitely don't quote me, but we know that commercial business is bigger than their residential business right now, for sure. And I'm sure there's some pretty high numbers. So, if I was Control4 or Snap, right? Like, why not? So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. As for your brand comment before, I'm a huge lover of Simon Sinek. People don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it. Mm-hmm. And when I go to any of those keynotes, I want to be inspired and driven. Right? We flew across the country. You flew into another country to get there. I want to be moved by what I sit down and see, and then sure, tell me about the products. And I think so many people, they miss it all the time. I was texting Matt, or maybe it was over Twitter, about another training I went to. And what they did is they took the engineers, and the engineers were the ones that were presenting. So it was a terrible presentation. They may have been the smartest guys in the room, but if they're not presenting with passion, then I left.
You know, it's funny you bring that up, because yes, it was over Twitter, and we were having a wonderful discussion about that. But that was my biggest takeaway from the Control4 SnapAV plus Control4 presser, was that they really did a fantastic job of trying to tell that brand story. And I feel like too often our industry doesn't do that. We don't tell the brand story. And Heather, to your point, when you give somebody something to connect on, it really allows them to buy into whatever it is that you're selling.
Right. The old Apple stuff used to be amazing, right? They never talked about the product and how great the camera was. They talked about how this product would change your life and your family and your relationship. They've unfortunately gotten away from that, but those are the kind of things that sell it. There's been all sorts of research on that too.
And to a degree, and I don't know if you saw, I was looking around because I have a book on telling your brand story, and I was trying to find it to do this.
Yes.
But, you know, I logged in on Thursday night, I think, trying to find the pre-order for the new Apple phone because I need to replace mine. And I wasn't necessarily looking for specs. I was trying to get to the pre-order thing. And I must have scrolled through like 15 pages of check out this image shot on iPhone 11 Max Pro S, whatever it is, getting down, trying to find that pre-order button. And, you know, when I was doing that, thinking of the presser, thinking about some of the other things that you saw on the floor, that was one of my biggest things, was telling the story is so easy. So using that as a lovely segue into a storyteller, this comes to us from CE Pro Hollywood director Barry Sonnenfeld, bashes problematic HDR and stupid 8K. No one has told him that you should not call anything stupid. It is rude. It is rude.
Canadians would never say that.
Never. That being said, I kind of feel like his comments were stupid. Or distasteful. Is that better? That's better. Yes. Distasteful.
Classy.
Well, they weren't classy. Tony, let me start with you first on this one. If you missed it, Kaleidoscape brought in Barry Sonnenfeld as well as, and I'm going to forget his name.
Patrick Warburton.
All I can think of it. Thank you. I was going to call him Putty, and I know that is
Works too.
It works too. Most people will know that
yeah.
one. Yes, and Patrick Warburton. They brought the two of them in to have a panel discussion in their booth about 8K and HDR. And let me tell you what, Barry Sonnenfeld is not a fan of either. He definitely does not like it. He does not like HDR. If you read through the article, you will see that he felt that Netflix ruined season 3 and 4, and I believe 5 of his series of unfortunate events that Patrick Warburton also starred in. Tony, when you read through this, I got to say, I have a really hard time not just seeing this article as an older individual who is just lambasted at the ridiculousness of this new technology that I'm sure he understands it, but he just doesn't like it, and he's upset, and it's a get off my lawn, stop doing this to me situation. Am I reading that wrong?
I don't think you're reading it wrong, but I also think that I think part of the problem, I think there's a fixable problem, and it's not like eliminating HDR. I think what this is a transitionary problem, where in fact, even when you read the piece, he was like someone at Netflix or whoever's doing the processing decided that, his scenes are washed out. Let me fix that for him. So there was no communication between what his vision was and the person doing the processing. And like I said, when here goes my age here, but when I was covering the transition from analog to digital, going from vinyl to CD, every big name producer came out and said that digital was terrible. The quality was too harsh. It wasn't what they wanted. You lost all the warmth, and they were kind of right because those early transfers were dreadful. They were terrible, but what happened was they adjusted. They caught up to it, what the technology could do. They stopped mixing for the old stuff and mixing for the new stuff. And eventually that's what's going to happen with all these, with the films. They're going to use HDR for what it's good for and figure out how to make it work for what these directors' visions are. So I think, I understand why he's upset now, but I don't think this is there's no need to go back. It just fix what we have here, and it will get fixed. And eventually he will be less cranky, I would imagine. I was not saying happy, just less cranky.
But just less cranky. That's
yes,
awesome.
That's the goal. Less cranky for Barry.
That's awesome. Heather, so I kind of got frustrated with this because I've seen 8K. I've seen 8K iterations for 2 years. When I saw the first Samsung version with all their AI and all of the crazy stuff they're doing to upscale content. I don't necessarily want to get into the debate over whether 4K is needed, whether 8K is needed, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm confused about, and I'd love some clarity, is why in God's name, or anyone's name really, why would you put two people on a panel at your booth where you want to sell your consumers
Product.
a new version of your device that's capable of all these things? Because Kaleidoscape is not a cheap product to purchase.
No, it's definitely a luxury product. Yeah, it's almost like marketing maybe didn't do some pre-questions, or he wanted to make a name for himself. I mean, I'm sure it was embarrassing for Kaleidoscape, and I feel bad for them. We'll never see or maybe we will, about the behind the scenes of how that ended up happening.
I totally want to see it.
Yeah, right. That's painful to get. Oh yeah, maybe they're just indicating the stars, but forgot to ask what they were going to say. And maybe they just assumed that they would say great things. Now, that being said, I think that if we went out and asked people on the street, what is 8K? What is HDR? How many people would know? I mean, I ran a retail store for years, and even when we got to high def, people weren't watching it because the cable companies had a standard def channel ABC and a high def ABC, and people didn't know the difference, right? So there's a huge learning curve in all this too. I agree with Tony. Like it will take a while to get there. It always does. Of course, we're going to talk about the next great thing because that's how we get better.
Well, and once something's there, are you actually going to go back? Are you going to downgrade?
Right. Yeah. Removal may not be the right answer. Fixing may be a better answer for that.
Like I have no desire to go back. Granted, I have a stack of records behind me and a record player right behind me, but I have no desire to go back to an A-track or a cassette. That's not at all what I want to do. I want to live in this moment.
You don't want to call the radio station and ask them to play your favorite song and sit there with record button?
And miss the first 3 seconds as the DJ talks over it.
And at the end, did you? I bet though. Then you probably made your girlfriend a mix, and then you probably had that voice of yours on there going, "I'll see you tomorrow."
Yeah, you're gonna love this song by the Fugees, Ready or Not. And then it's like 3 minutes into the song because the DJ was talking over, here's the greatest new track. Yeah, I was a Fuji fan.
Yeah, our kids will never know that.
No, they'll never know who it was. The last point I kind of want to make on this is I had a very entertaining discussion on 8K with our shooter this week, Craig, who was our cameraman, because he shoots broadcast for a lot of the major sporting events. And if you want to get a really good take on 8K and why it matters, talk to somebody in production. Not necessarily broadcast as far as 8K for broadcast, but talk to somebody in production. You'll get a whole different mindset. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us. I know everybody's tired and exhausted after a very busy week in Denver. Tony, if people want to connect with you, learn more about residential systems, where can they do that?
Then go to residentialsystems.com or visit me on Twitter at ResiSys, RESISYS.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Heather, my good friend, thanks again for joining us. It's a pleasure as always. If people want to learn more about you, get all of your tech musings as well as your company, Southtown AV, where can they do that?
I'm on the social media platforms, but Twitter is where I tend to rant and rave the most. Tech, TECH_chi, CHI, as in a balance between technology and life.
Thanks again for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all of the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you support them as well. Also, as a minor personal note, the CEDIA Board of Directors elections are up again, and I'm honored to be nominated again. If you'd like to get more information on this and or to vote for myself, that would be fantastic. You can visit cedia.net for all of that information, or cedia.org. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.